Good afternoon. IACO welcomes you to the panel on New Jersey's vision and commitment to immigrant integration. New Jersey is home to more than 2 million immigrants, as neighbors, business owners, taxpayers, and workers make extensive contributions that benefit the whole society. For their integration into society to be a reality, it is necessary that public officials at all levels must plan and adopt inclusive policies to ensure their civic, social, educational, and economic participation in the community. According to the New American Immigration Report of the state of New Jersey's foreign-born population is one of the most diverse in the nation. Let us look at some statistics. More than three-quarters of immigrants reported speaking English well or very well, but they also speak different household languages, mainly Spanish at 32%, followed by Filipino and Chinese. More than half, approximately 1.2 million, are naturalized citizens, and more than 300,000 lawful permanent residents are eligible to become naturalized citizens. Although approximately three-quarters of New Jersey's immigrants have some form of legal status, it is estimated that approximately 500,000 are currently undocumented. Approximately 10% of U.S. citizen children live with at least one family member who is undocumented. The contributions of immigrants to the state's economy are indisputable. This is evidenced by some data from 2018. Immigrants paid 19.7 billion in federal taxes and 9.5 billion in state and local taxes. The purchasing power of immigrants was more than $65 billion. And more than 1.4 million workers make up the workforce. 33% of entrepreneurs are immigrants, and their business activity exceeds $3.8 billion. Below, important representatives of the state and municipal government will delve into this topic, explaining what their vision and commitment to the integration of immigrants in New Jersey is. This panel will be moderated by Mrs. Ileana Montes, Director of IACA's Legal Department.
My name is Ileana Montes. I'm the legal director of IACO, the organization that is hosting this 2021 Immigration Integration Conference. I like to thank all of the panelists for joining us today. And we're going to start with this very, very important segment of our conference, where we're going to highlight the vision and commitment of New Jersey in the process of the integration of new Americans. As we all know, New Jersey is among the most diverse states in the nation, and immigrant communities are an integral part of our economy and social fabric. In New Jersey, over 2 million residents are immigrants of refugees, representing nearly 23% of the New Jersey population. Many immigrants, including countless women and children, were forced to leave their home countries and families because of violence and natural disasters. And many live and work under poor conditions, often facing the uncertainty of deportation. Others are victims of human trafficking and subject to violence and exploitation. As immigration flows continue to mount, policies protecting vulnerable migrants' rights, particularly their rights to basic health care and work, are critical to safeguard their dignity and facilitate their successful integration into host societies. So up until now, our organization has been the only organization in the state of New Jersey that holds a conference specifically geared towards helping the immigrant community integrate into the American society. And because of that, we are very proud and we thank all of you for joining us. Our goals are to facilitate the process of immigrant integration for equity and dignity and increase civic engagement to strengthen our voice and our power. The purpose of the conference is to bring the entire community together, to crossroad our ideas, our stories, and experiences to create strategies to improve the lives of immigrants. Unfortunately, the divisive rhetoric and irresponsible and inhumane immigration policy by the prior federal administration have led to communities and populations feeling fearful instead of welcome. In contrast, we acknowledge and we thank the state of New Jersey, and particularly the leadership of Governor Phil Murphy and Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, because under their administration, they created the Office of New Americans. The office runs under the Department of the Human Services and the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. And the purpose is to promote training that inform immigrants of services available to them, to teach their rights, and to ensure that services are accessible to new immigrant populations, including those that speak languages other than English. In addition to the participation of the state, we recognize the importance of local governments in this process. And without a doubt, the integration process begins at the local levels where children go to school, where parents interact with neighborhoods, etc. Since circumstances vary from municipality to municipality and from city to city, local policies for integration that build and activate interaction between immigrants and local society should receive highest priority. And for that reason, we not only have representatives from the state as a whole, but we also have representatives from local governments. So now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the Lieutenant Governor of our state of New Jersey. Sheila Oliver is definitely a Jersey girl. She was born and raised in an ethnically diverse Newark neighborhood. Lieutenant Governor Oliver was inspired as a young girl to be a fighter for the voiceless when her eyes were open to injustices and inequalities around her, often citing the historical novel A Tale of Two Cities as her youth awakening. She has since pioneered a successful career in public service, advocating for social justice, women's equality, and education, ultimately becoming the first woman of color to serve in a statewide election office in New Jersey history. In addition to her role as Lieutenant Governor, she serves as Commissioner of the Department of Community Affairs, where she has led efforts to strengthen and expand initiatives for fair and affordable housing, community revitalization, homelessness prevention, and local government services that support the 565 municipalities in the state of New Jersey. Lieutenant Governor, it is indeed a great pleasure to have you today. I served as the director of the Division on Women at the Department of Community Affairs when the division was under that department. So we celebrate you today for being the first Lieutenant Governor of color, a woman. We celebrate your achievements and thank you once again for being with us today. I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ileana. And I certainly have a great deal of respect for your leadership and the leadership that you bring to this organization. Um, this environment that we have been in under the prior national administration really took us back. We call it regression. There has never been a time in the United States, and definitely in the state of New Jersey, where we did not welcome with open arms people who came from other places. you often hear that our country is a melting pot. And the state of New Jersey, if you look at our history, we are definitely a melting pot. I know, growing up in Newark, New Jersey, and my parents' friends, they were always advocates and activists for people who were disadvantaged. They were Jewish. They were um, they were African American. They were Latino. They came from places all over the world, and they worked together in the 1960s in order to make certain that everyone had access to what the United States and the state of New Jersey had to offer. I think that what we have seen through organizations like your own, that everyone is realizing and understanding that we must push the envelope, not just in the United States, but even right here at home in our state of New Jersey, to make certain that we continue to have an open and welcoming environment in our state. We all see what some of our Asian American brothers and sisters are being confronted with. It saddens me to no end the violence that I am seeing perpetrated among, Asian Americans. But one of our biggest populations in New Jersey, the Latino population, they also are often subjected to unequal treatment, to not having access to full opportunity, and often being fearful of going out into the community and being a broader participant because of their immigration status. I get letters and emails all the time from family members who are seeking our help in the state government in issues that are happening with another family member. I have encountered and worked to try to support, for instance, thinking of in my county, a Vietnamese immigrant who has been here since he was a child, growing up in Jersey City, always, participating and working. But he's coming to terms now with the fact that his immigration status is getting in the way of him wanting to pursue certain occupational paths. Um, Having a green card would be his first step into that kind of freedom. But he was very fearful, and his family was very fearful during the Trump administration. And he got more fearful of his comings and goings and traveling to work every day. And I just often say we need to walk in another person's shoes. And I think that people who are in our state who are unfamiliar with the challenges that are represented by our immigrant populations, especially our undocumented, it is quite a challenge to just exist every day. I often think about the travel that has brought people here to New Jersey. People who left a place that was always home to them, where the language was dominant, where the religious practices were dominant, and where everyone looked like themselves. Just imagine traveling thousands of miles, hundreds of thousands of miles in a lifetime to arrive to these shores. New Jersey is certainly a hub, and I think that our immigrant population particularly feels comfortable here because we have people from all over the world here in New Jersey. There are places in this country where that is not so. And, often when I read about growing immigrant populations in North Dakota and South Dakota, and I often wonder to myself, are they having a welcoming experience in these places? Because many of these places have a very low percentage of immigrants living in their states. But those immigrants are contributing mightily economically to growth, economic growth in those places. So I think this whole argument of immigration and that we should, quote, have closed borders in this country is a bunch of nonsense. It is nonsense. I often believe that we have to teach people and educate them and elevate their consciousness. So in New Jersey, I do believe we are a bit fortunate. We have a very progressive leaning state. The counties of our state are, are progressive, and we've got a lot of advocacy organization and activist boots on the ground to represent the interests of our immigrant population.
Thank you, Lieutenant. And you mentioned many issues that are extremely important. We definitely have to push the envelope, as you say. We do have the hope and the hopefully the green light at the end of the tunnel that after so many years of needing immigration legislation, hopefully during this administration can be accomplished. Nevertheless, we all know that that's a very difficult political process, that even though the federal administration is committed to that, is not 100% subject to the president alone. So we cannot forgive or forget the history and the legislative process. In the meantime, definitely we do have a progressive leaning state. And in addition to the Office of New Americans, Governor Phil Mercy signed the legislation to finally give the opportunity to undocumented to be able to get their driver license. And that's a great achievement because so many people drive with the fear of not having their license, not being able to have an insurance. At the same time, we are such a progressive state, but we are also a very expensive state. And our communities, the immigrant community, has had a disproportionate impact with this pandemic. So what would be the vote of confidence that you can give to the communities to be resilient, and what can we do? I mean, our organizations are very active, but on the other hand, also what the immigrant community can do to also solve the challenges that we face.
You know, Earlier in my career, I spent a great deal of time working within uh, private nonprofit organizations, and we have many of them in this state. I think that we have to make certain that, particularly our undocumented communities, we need to make them aware of the network of private, nonprofit, voluntary organizations that exist in our state. Because these organizations, they're not governmental entities, they have a lot of flexibility in some of the things they can do and the services that they can provide. And they do not always rely on government funding to accomplish the things that they do. Things from early childhood education to food banks and food co-ops, job training and access to job placement. I think that the nonprofit organizations that exist in every county from one end to the state need to be places that our undocumented community particularly can feel safe in. The other thing that I love about our nonprofit community in New Jersey is that we have people of all ethnicities working as staff members within those organizations. And many of the staff people can relate to the experiences that many of our immigrants in New Jersey, the experiences that they are having. And so I think it is important for us to, we can go to government, but there's a full range of voluntary organizations in this state that can do much to help the immigrant and undocumented community in New Jersey.
Yes, thank you. And definitely by having the Center for Hispanic Research and Policy, by having the Office for New Americans, it's definitely a good opportunity to work together with nonprofit organizations and with the state, reaching out really to the needs of the community because we can be the bridge to the state so that the state is fully aware of the new challenges because every day there are new challenges.
Absolutely.
Yes. So once again, we thank you for your valuable input. We are aware that your time is very, very limited. You're welcome to stay, but if you must move on to other priorities and arrangements, please feel free to do so. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ileana. And I look forward to what comes out of this conference so that we can build upon some of the information that we learn and the information that is gathered so we can incorporate that into our policy making within our state departments and agencies.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ileana.
Okay, so next we are going to move with the city of Passaic. We are fortunate also to have the mayor of Passaic. He was re-elected recently, so we are very happy for you, Mayor. We welcome you. Mayor Carlos Lora was born and raised in the city of Passaic. He is the son of Dominican immigrants and brother to 5 siblings. Mayor Lora graduated from Passaic Public School System and then enrolled at Seton Hall University. He attended Passaic County Community College, where he graduated with an associate degree, summa cum laude. He then went on to earn a bachelor's degree from Liberty University, where he also graduated with high honors, magna cum laude. Prior to entering the political office, Mayor Lora worked at St. Mary's Hospital in Passaic for over 14 years. There, he served as the director of multiple departments and as the director of public health and patient liaison with the public relations and marketing department. Mayor, we thank you because in addition to doing a great job in the city of Passaic, you have been a great supporter of our organization. Our organization is located in the city of Passaic. We have been here for more than 2 decades, and that you have supported our conferences as well. So we are eager to hear from you once again.
Well, first, thank you, Liana. Allow me to express my appreciation for the presence of your organization and your commitment and your service within our city. We're truly blessed to have you here. Our city of Passaic, which is a city of over 70% Latino, and a very large portion of that population are immigrants, and a great majority are children of immigrants. So this is such an important topic for us to discuss. The city of Passaic is known for our immigrant community, and Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver has shared that all of us can point back to our history, to our roots, to our ancestry, and share that in common, that we all came from somewhere else, and that's our story. I would say that in terms of the city of Passaic, one of the things that we have been most committed to, and I believe we joined together with all of our sister cities here in the county. And I'm so glad to see Commissioner of the county, John Bartlett, because we often would go around every single municipality in the county sharing this message that we're stronger together, that our diversity is truly a blessing. And I think in the city of Passaic, we continue with that message. And I wanted to say that I think that's such a key factor in terms of embracing immigrant communities and supporting. It's the message that you begin with. When a municipality, when a community shares a message of inclusion, shares a message that we're here to support you, shares a message of we want to facilitate resources and assistance to the community, I think that it helps, especially with residents who come from another country, to feel more at ease and have trust to approach government and to seek out assistance. Messaging can be whether you translate information in the languages that are prominent in your community. You know, I've often had people tell me, well, Mayor, why do you translate things in Spanish, or perhaps try to translate things for your South Asian communities? And why don't you do every single language? I say, well, that's not realistic. It's not pragmatic. I think you look at your communities, each community is unique. And if your community has a large number of individuals who are of Middle Eastern background, you ensure that you can translate information for that community. If you have a community that is largely Italian immigrant or immigrants from Poland, then you translate in that language and you do the best that you can. But in those efforts, I believe that the relationships that are forged become so important because immigrants and individuals in the community see that. And it's not just the immigrants who are coming to the country for the first time and newly becoming Americans, but those around see that message and they adopt that view and that approach and say, my city is a welcoming city and I want to be a welcoming resident. So translations are so important. Also forums, you know, IACO had this amazing and wonderful forum in the city of Passaic. And even now, as you bring so many individuals together, leaders and officials, from our lieutenant governor to our mayors, of course, community leaders as well, these opportunities that we have to discuss issues, policies, concerns, and approach, they make us consider what are the needs of the community, and it helps. And when you partner with organizations, like in the city of Passaic, we partner with Mi Casa es Puebla, which is a very well-known organization that assists individuals that come from Mexico, specifically from Puebla, because we have the largest, in terms of demographics, population of Mexican immigrants concentrated in a municipality, the city of Passaic. And having Mi Casas Puebla here and partnering with them as a city helps us reach that community, because sometimes the community feels more comfortable, not necessarily going directly to City Hall, not necessarily dealing face to face with government at first, but going to places and locations that they can feel like these people know me a little bit more. I can relate to them. Oftentimes that could be a house of worship. That could be an institution. In the city of Passaic, we used to have the Hispanic Information Center. That could be IACO that they can reach out to. And having those relationships with government, where often we make resources available, where we don't have to be at the very front of it. You know, I learned that over my years as a councilman and as a freeholder, now the position as commissioner and as mayor, that sometimes when organizations within the community say, you know, we need your building, or can you assist us with police? Or is there a resource that if government learns to take a step back and say, we'll support you with our resources, but you be the face of it and you lead it. I've seen a great appreciation from the community, which kind of leads to the next thing I wanted to say, that when we facilitate or when we support, when we stand by our immigrant community, whether it's in a demonstration to fight for the rights to have driver's licenses, to push forward for policies that create a genuine and realistic pathway to legalization, whether it's residency or citizenship, when we stand next to our community, it means a lot. But and I'll admit, as a son of an immigrant, I can relate to the story probably a little easier than some other officials, but I've learned that when we try to speak on behalf of our immigrant residents or try to be their voice, we do a disservice, because in a sense, we send this message that immigrants can't advocate for themselves. And you said something, Liana, that was so powerful at the end when you were expressing your gratitude to Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver. You said, "Thank you for your valuable input." And it brought this to mind, that just because my input, it can't be understood so easily in your language, doesn't make it any less valuable. And I've learned that when we take the opportunity with our immigrant community to say, we want to hear your views, we want to hear your position. How do you feel about this policy? How would you want us to address this? And then take the time to offer translation. You'll find that some of the most phenomenal and remarkable ideas and initiatives come from those that so many are trying to speak for instead of listening to. When I consider this global pandemic and how we came together as a community around the world, people banded together and shared knowledge and information, and everyone focused on the idea of creating a vaccine. We know how to come together when it's necessary, and that brings me back to the valuable input that we need to view our immigrant community as a treasure, as an amazing asset, and as an extremely important benefit and blessing to our cities, and reach out and offer assistance and translations. I also wanted to say that it's important as government and as mayor, because I've done this and I've spoken to my colleague in the great city of Patterson, Mayor Andre Sayer, and I've seen his approach with law enforcement. Sometimes we in government, we become the face of everything that happens at City Hall. So when there's an interaction, they go, "Mayor, why do you allow this?" And what most people aren't privy to are the initiatives where we speak to our chiefs of police, our fire, our officials for sensitivity training to understand our unique communities. For example, in the Latino community, and much like some other communities, Italian communities, Middle Eastern communities, we speak often with our hands. I think many who are immigrant know this, right? If someone stops us and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And we're going, "I'm doing nothing. I was coming from here and I came back over here." Well, when police aren't aware of that, that can be viewed as aggressive physical behavior. And when you tell someone of Latino culture, "Put your hands down, calm down," in the mind of the individual having the exchange and the interaction, "I am calm. Why are you telling me to calm down?" Because culturally, it's so natural for us to speak in this manner. It's such a minor thing, but the reason why I point to it is in government, when we're aware of this, when we understand this from these communities, when we can relate to this situation, we can create conditions for our officials where we don't pit government against the community. We don't pit our law enforcement against the community, but we say there's a gap that needs to be filled, that we need to meet in the middle. And we say, let's train. Let's discuss how we can better respond to immigrant communities. And I'll conclude with just this last point that I think is so important. One of the unfortunate, I think, experiences that I have noted in my personal time as elected official and as an American is that it's hard to relate to the immigrant experience if you haven't had to go through it. For most individuals in this country, the extent to which you'll have exposure, or they will have exposure, is traveling to another country as a visitor, and you're a tourist, and you can't understand the language for a week while you're in a resort and everyone's trying to accommodate to your needs. And that's very different than having to start a whole new life and not knowing how to communicate. And I think that if we take the time to relate and understand, it helps us to move forward. There's so much that can be discussed, but being cognizant of the fact that we have a panel, I wanted to point those things out and again, end where I began. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing, and to the panelists and all those involved, because I always learn so very much, and I'm so deeply appreciative of our governor, our lieutenant governor, and all those here who work hard to make sure that we're a more inclusive community locally, statewide, and honestly, with social media and our opportunities around the world, we become closer and more supportive of each other. Thank you.
Mayor, thank you very, very much. And you're absolutely right, because in the beginning, I mentioned that this is a two-way street. The governments, state government, federal government, state government, local government have to be part of this integration, but the immigrant community as well. to the extent that these discussions take place, we can start becoming aware of the cultural differences, because I'm the first one to be talking with my hands. And you're absolutely right. One day, God forbid, if I get arrested, then I know I have to put my hands down. But it is absolutely true, because we see that happening all the time. The difference in culture can affect the way that we are perceived by others. So if the generation of Americans that have been here for many, many years are aware of the different customs that new Americans have, perhaps there is more tolerance. And you know, the communication is extremely important. But from the government perspective, the contact, the availability of the elected official, it is extremely important to build the trust for the immigrant community. And we are fortunate in this panel to have mayors that are completely committed to respecting the differences, to appreciating the differences, because those differences also make the communities vibrant. And at the end of the day, what we really need to realize is that although there are many differences, in times of need, like the pandemic and natural disasters, it is really more that we have in common than what we have in differences. So we never can lose sight of that. Thank you very much, Mayor. I really appreciate it. We're now going to move on with the mayor from the city of Patterson, which is also a very important city in our state and a melting pot. Mayor Saye assumed the office of mayor of Patterson on July 1st of 2018, focusing his administration on stabilizing property taxes, improving public safety, and driving economy and development. He is determined to inspire a renaissance in the third largest city in New Jersey, driven in part through tourism and economic growth around the city's most incredible natural resource, which is the Great Patterson Falls, or the Great Patterson Falls National Historical Park. Mayor Saye served on the Patterson City Council from 2008 to 2018, where he helped establish a more business-friendly and family-friendly Patterson. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us today. I know it's extremely important that we have the representation of Patterson, because Patterson has communities from many, many, many countries, and we are also eager to hear from you. Welcome.
Thank you, Ileana. And first, I'm going to try not to use my hands too much, because I do. Look at that, you muted me already. I just got started. Was that something I said? Maybe I should use my hands to communicate. I want to first, of course, let you know that I'm not going to try to use too much of my hands, because I do have a proclivity to gesticulate. Second, I want to congratulate my counterpart in Passaic, our sister city, on his recent re-election victory, resounding re-election victory. As Commissioner Bartlett knows, I have an affinity for alliteration. So resounding re-election, a recent re-election victory. Hats off to you, Mayor Laura. And Ileana, you said it, we are a multicultural melting pot in Patterson. We celebrate our diversity. As a matter of fact, we've carved out ethnic enclaves so the world could see that we are proud of our people. Whether they're from Peru, we have Peru Square. Whether they're from Colombia, we have Colombian Corridor. We have Dominican Republic Way. We have Bangladesh Boulevard. We're going to be doing things for Jamaicans and Palestinians. And as the son of immigrants, my mother's from Syria, my father's from Lebanon, I know that we should celebrate that we are a nation of immigrants, and always remember that, even though for the last 4 years, there were people in high places that were trying their best to make us forget that we are a nation of immigrants, and that's the bedrock of our society. And I want to point out, Commissioner Bartlett, because if we've learned one thing during this pandemic, there's power in partnerships. And we partnered on the census. We had to get a complete and accurate count. And we especially had to make extra efforts for hard to reach residents who were reluctant to participate. And we found that people were distrustful of government. People just didn't maybe understand. So we doubled down, right, John? We put everything in Spanish, Bangla, Arabic, Turkish. He went as far, I think there was like several different dialects in India. He even went that far to make sure we reached out to those individuals as well. And we're hoping that the preliminary results that show state figures with a 5.7% increase in our population in New Jersey, perhaps that'll reflect on the population in Paterson, maybe even Passaic as well. But that would mean more federal funding so we can help immigrant populations in Paterson and Passaic. Educational funding, infrastructure improvement, public safety. That's why we were so adamant about making sure we were reaching out to everyone, particularly immigrant communities, undocumented individuals. We made it a point, and that was a victory, a major victory in the Supreme Court, where you didn't have to identify whether or not you were a citizen, because we were pushing for that too. So that in and of itself was a win for us. But like the larger victory, now I'm using my hands too much. Now I'm cognizant. See, maybe think about it too much. But we think the biggest victory would be if we reach that complete and accurate count in Paterson of over 150,000 people. We're a class 1 city and we get more federal funding. So Commissioner, hats off to you for taking the lead in the county and partnering with Paterson to make sure that everyone was counted, irrespective of your status in this country. Speaking of which, who would have ever predicted we'd have a pandemic? And if we're going to finally put this COVID-19 crisis behind us, we got to get people vaccinated. And I can tell you that since December 28th, Paterson has been attempting to lead from the front, and we do not discriminate because this virus does not. So we have not turned anyone away as far as vaccination is concerned. And Ileana, I can tell you, after visiting our point of dispensing on a regular basis, I can see that there were a lot of undocumented individuals in our city that were looking to get vaccinated, and we made sure that they did as well. It even got to a point where people were calling family members to come from other countries where they couldn't get vaccinated to come to Paterson to get the vacuna. As a matter of fact, to be specific, there have been issues in Peru with the vaccine, and it wasn't really made available for everyone. People were coming from Peru, and we were not saying no because of the family members, and they were on our soil. How can we say no? It's a humanitarian effort during a global crisis. And so that's some action-oriented items in Paterson, whether it was the census, whether it was the vaccination process. We had to make sure that we were front and center and celebrate our immigrant community and make sure that we provide equity in how we distribute resources and how we render our services. So thank you for allowing me to join you today. And I didn't use my hands in the last 2 minutes.
You did very well, Mayor. Thank you. I'm so proud. I mean, believe me, I have my hands tied too. So I think we all do. But, it is absolutely true because equity, it's something that we struggle all the time in making sure that immigrants get the services. And as we all know, the services are categorized according also to the immigration status. So one of the concern that the community has had for many, many years, but particularly during the last administration, was whether they could obtain some services. And when we had the beginning of the pandemic, people were concerned whether they could go to food banks, whether they could get any financial assistance. Now that the vaccine is available, in the beginning, people were concerned, well, is this going to affect if down the line I apply for any immigration benefit? So you're absolutely right. I think that the role of the local governments is to give that trust to the residents that, although that there is a lot of misconception and they cannot access some of the services, some of the other services are definitely available to them.
And Ileana, if I may dovetail on something you said, we also offer municipal IDs. irrespective of your status. We
Oh,
wanna
that's
make sure you
wonderful.
yes, we do. We've been doing that for the last few years. You get it through our Department of Health and Human Services. We also have a very active food bank in the city in the form of Kumac. We also have Oasis, which is a haven for women and children. They particularly focus on immigrant families as well.
So let me ask you a question
Sure.
just to inform the audience. Can you tell us a little bit what the municipality ID can help undocumented residents for?
Yeah, sure. Typically, you're always asked for identification, right? We were at the point of dispensing, we were asking for identification. Most people could only come up with a passport. That's all they could produce for us. But with other endeavors that people may pursue, you're asked for identification. You go to the doctor or any type of transaction or interaction where there's a ID required, this comes in handy. So I want to make sure that people have it. And that's why we launched the municipal ID program. And I've always been a supporter.
That's great to hear, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Well, it's the least we could do, right?
Mayor, that was created by us in Newark first.
Oh God, this guy wants to get into a battle. I mean, listen, we're all friends here. I mean, put your sword away, please. Come on. But listen, I'll give you credit.
Okay.
I'll give you a lot. I'll give him a lot of credit. But also, Eliana, now he got me going. See, Carlos, you had to do that, right? I was ready to sign off. Get back to mayoring. So one thing I also want to tell you, as far as equity is concerned, we're launching what's called the Financial Empowerment Center, and we have trained counselors. They can provide free one-on-one financial counseling at our center, which is going to be at the United Way headquarters over at the Center City Mall, and we will take all comers. We will help provide financial assistance to anyone who needs to repair a credit score, reduce their debt, or even establish a bank account. So look out for that. That's coming out mid-June. And we just wrapped up the application process for our guaranteed income initiative, where single individuals who make less than $30,000 or families that make less than $88,000 can apply to receive $400 a month for a year. And Carlos, I know they're doing it in Newark too. I don't know if we were first, you were first, irrespective of that. We're helping people, and there is equity in that as well.
That's wonderful. It's really wonderful to hear that so many municipalities in the state of New Jersey have moved and are moving in the right direction to support our community, and that mayors like you and commissioners and lieutenant governors are really sensitive to the needs.
That's right.
So that's really the collaboration and the work that, we have accomplished a lot, but there is also so much to be done. So thank you once again, Mayor. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Eliana. And if Carlos says anything else, I'm ready to chime in. I like that.
Okay, we have 3 other panelists, so we're going to move on. We're going to continue with the County of Passaic. We have a commissioner, John Bartlett. He is also the chair of Law and Public Safety Committee. He was first elected to the Passaic County Board of County Commissioners in 2012. And in his years as a county commissioner, he has served virtually in all of the board's standing committees. As Passaic County representative in the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, County Commissioner Bartlett helps prioritize and oversee more than $2 billion in annual infrastructure improvements in our region. Since he joined the Transportation Planning Authority, more than $115 million in federal infrastructure funding has flowed into Passaic County, supporting projects from major roads improvements on routes 46, Route 3, Route 23, and 80. As a county commissioner, I know that he must work closely with many mayors and elected officials, and we truly thank you for your so many years of service and for your commitment. I welcome you to this segment, and I turn it over to you.
Well, Ileana, thank you very much. And to you and the entire team, thank you for hosting an event as important as this. I'm so glad that the mayors of our 2 largest cities, Patterson, and Passaic are with us. But Passaic County extends all the way from Patterson, Passaic, and Clifton in the south, all the way up to West Milford and Ringwood in the north, right on the New York border. So almost anything that New Jersey has, except the shore, Passaic County has. And that includes a huge number of, rich and vibrant immigrant communities. Passaic County, as I'm sure a lot of our participants here know, is nearly 40% Hispanic. Actually, the census may tell us that we're now above 40% Hispanic. About 1 in 3 of us are immigrants. And that includes not just those large Hispanic communities that Hector and Andre talked about, but also Arab American communities, Indian, Bangladeshi, and other South Asian American communities, and a whole host of others. And I've had the chance to work a lot on initiatives serving those communities, including outreach for the Passaic County Board of Social Services to make sure that families know all the different types of support that they're entitled to by law. By bringing senior services and human services departments of the county out of their buildings and into public housing and other public spaces where people can find out about those services and can apply. We did a major initiative with our Syrian refugee community, bringing community partners from the Y in Wayne to church groups to others together to make sure that that group of about 24 families had what they needed in their first winter here in the United States. And of course, as Mayor Saya mentioned, last year with Census 2020, a huge effort to outreach and connect with a variety of immigrant communities, especially because we had to get folks counted in those hard to count communities. So what I've identified over the course of all this time and service is that there's really 3 key principles that all of us in the public sector need to be working from to make sure we're connecting with all of our immigrant communities. And those are accessibility, credibility, and equal opportunity. So when you talk about accessibility, look, we have an easy time reaching some communities. Folks who watch English language local television, who read the English language press, who are on social media because they have computers, people who interact with our school system as parents. All of those folks we have opportunities to connect with. People who drive and who own a car may be able to get to sites, whether it's our nutrition sites or whether it's COVID vaccination and testing. But for others, it is more difficult to connect. We need to speak their language and we need to go where they are and communicate in the places and in the ways that they're accustomed to communicating and receiving messages. We need to reach, in particular, the people that most need the information that we're coming with. And when you talk about a lot of these support programs related to education and children and families, that's the women in these immigrant communities. The second piece is credibility. In government, we like to think we're inherently credible. I got the blue jacket on, I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about, and I should be believed as a result. But in fact, in the communities that we most need to reach, it's others who have the most credibility. It's advocates and service organizations like this one, or like Make the Road New Jersey. It's clergy and religious institutions. It's people, as I think Hector mentioned, who have been through what these immigrant communities are going through, which I can't say I have. And the third prong is equal opportunity. This is the policy piece. This is where we need to be affirmative and work with intent to make sure that we are doing the outreach in the languages that it's needed, that we are seeking out those community partners that have the credibility and the access that we need to get the information and the programs to the people and families who need them. And also at the level of policy, it's things like Passaic County's fair and welcoming policy. I'm proud that Passaic County was the first county and state in New Jersey to adopt a fair and welcoming policy, whereby if we don't need to ask your legal status, we won't. We will only ask as much information as we need to provide you or your family member the services that you're entitled to. So now let's take those 3 principles of accessibility and credibility and equal opportunity. Let's apply it to the pandemic, apply it to what we've all been dealing with over these last 15 or 16 months. First of all, accessibility, we've got to go to where people are. In the early days of getting the vaccine out or getting testing done, we started with a single location. But as we moved on, we worked with community partners. We got that whatever was needed, the shot, the testing, out directly to homes by mail or out into community sites. And we got the word out in those native languages and in the places where it would be seen. Hector called this messaging. Credibility, as Andre pointed out, as I mentioned, government is not always inherently trusted. So we need to form, and we have been forming those partnerships with community organizations, with faith communities. And that piece really goes hand in hand with accessibility. Earlier this month, we did a walk-in vaccination site at Mi Casa es Puebla in the city of Passaic. So we had our bilingual Passaic County Department of Health staff members go out to Mi Casa es Puebla in conjunction with the Mexican consulate, provide vaccines, answer questions, encourage people who came out to the walk-in site to go back to bring family members, to bring other members of their community. We're going to continue to do that in partnership with places and organizations like that to make sure that we get the vaccine out, that we get the information, the testing, and so forth out. And again, when you talk about credibility, involving leaders in the messaging, involving people like you and like the other panelists in making sure that this information gets out. And then equal opportunity. We're making specific and special efforts to break down language barriers. We're making specific efforts to reach immigrant communities. Business owners, for example, we've had a major grant program in conjunction with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. And I partnered with Senator Vin Gopal and Assemblyman Raj Mukherjee to do an outreach specifically directed at Indian American business owners. And by going through those ethnic business associations, we got information out so that businesses that were struggling could access CARES Act funding, could access some of the grants, the PPP loans, the emergency loans that help them stay afloat, help them support their families and pay their employees. And again, especially connecting with undocumented people. And that's where our fair and welcoming policy has been so important. If we don't need to know your legal status, we won't ask it. And I'll give you a specific example of how that works when it comes to COVID. If you go to our COVID testing site, if you go to our COVID vaccination site, if you do connect with us in any way to access the food aid, the business support, et cetera, we often may ask for proof of your residency because it's our job to make sure that we're providing this information and these resources and the testing and the vaccines for people in Passaic County. But proving residency doesn't mean proving citizenship or legal status. You can prove your residency with utility bill, with rent and pay stubs, with anything that's got your name and address. So we don't need to know your legal status to give you that vaccine, to give you that test that you need. At the Passaic County Board of Social Services, we don't need to know your legal status to know that your US citizen child is eligible for food stamps or for educational assistance or for any of a number of other things. So if we don't need to ask, we won't. What we still need, and what the people that are watching this panel can hopefully, I think, help with, we always need more community partners. We always need more of those credible voices that can help get the information and the resources that I have out to the communities that need it. We also need to hear from you where the gaps are. Where do you think you need us, but we're missing the mark? Last year when I was working on Census 2020, we put out videos and information in 5 languages: English, Spanish, Arabic, Bengali, and Gujarati. And it wasn't long before a community volunteer put out similar information in a video in Turkish. And another went live on Facebook and talked about the census in Jamaican patois. These are things that those community partners, speaking directly to the people that need to hear it in the languages they understand, can be an essential part of the kind of outreach and the kind of publicity that we're doing. So I would say in closing, anybody who's watching this, come, whether it's to our website, whether it's to the Passaic County website or impactpassaic.org or any of the other places that you might find information online, make sure that that information is getting out to your community and find out ways to connect with us so that you can be that conduit, that you can be that very credible messenger. And I'll give you one more example in closing. We're about to launch, actually, by the time this airs, we will have launched an eviction prevention initiative. Hundreds, thousands of families in Passaic County rent for their residences. And if they've suffered job loss or a loss of income because of the COVID crisis, they're eligible to apply for rental assistance. So those unpaid months of rent going backwards, we can pay your landlord in connection with those months, make sure that you have the housing stability that you need, protect you for a period of time going forward with that housing stability as you're getting back on your feet, as your family is recovering economically and personally from the COVID crisis. So that eviction prevention initiative you can find online at impactpassaic.org is something that anybody can apply for. If you're a landlord, if you maybe own a multifamily house and rent the other units, you're somebody who's eligible to work with your tenants and apply for that funding. So it's just one example, but anybody who's watching this can be part of getting the word out. And I'm so grateful, Ileana, and your entire team that you are hosting this forum as you do every year, and that you're helping us get the word out. So thank you.
Commissioner, thank you very much. I am actually extremely pleased to hear that as a commissioner, and specifically for the county of Passaic that is so diverse, the county has a very well planned structure when it comes to servicing the community. Accessibility, credibility, and equal opportunity. In those three words, you encompass everything. And that's exactly what our community needs. So thank you very, very much for your sensitivity, for your commitment. I also applaud the efforts that you have done for the senior community. Obviously, they're also another vulnerable segment of our population. Yeah. For the refugee community, for helping those 2,000 families. When we talk about immigrants, sometimes we lose sight of the refugees, and that in addition to having to get accustomed to the new world and learning a new language, they also have that traumatic experience of the violence that they experienced. So thank you. I want to highlight that that's extremely important for YACO particularly, because over the course of the 20 years that we have been in service, we have provided direct services to approximately 3,000 members. And out of those 3,000 members, they have come from 110 different countries. And not everybody comes because of the American dream. Not everybody comes because they want to have better working opportunities, but because the violence is unbearable. And because a lot of the times they have lost significant others or their life is at risk. So thank you very much for everything that you do and for your commitment. We are going to move on. At the end, I hope to have a few minutes to exchange ideas and for questions among the panelists, but we need to move on. We still have 3 other panelists. Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we have Councilman from Prospect Park, Ala Matari. Mr. Matari, I apologize. I know that we were thinking that we were going to have the participation of the mayor. So in advance, I apologize because I do not have your biography, but nevertheless, we welcome you. And if you want to start just by telling us a little bit about yourself, that will be great.
Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you. Councilman Alamatari, Councilman Prospect Park, also a sheriff officer for Passaic County, been in law enforcement for the past 14 years. So this topic hits straight to the heart. Me being an immigrant, the mayor Karula also being an immigrant, and us being one of the leaders of an awesome, diverse town. It is the smallest town in Passaic County, Prospect Park. We are very proud of Prospect Park and the diversity of it. We have a lot of ordinances actually put in place that we don't even ask any of our residents about their backgrounds. We go to that extent. We go that far because you know what? It's not about where you're coming from. It's about who you are as a human being. You know, we are in the year 2021, where I feel like, you know what, as a human race, we should be thinking way beyond borders. We just be thinking about the human race in the total as one, because you know what, no human being has the power to judge another human being. I don't know if you believe in faith or not, but it always comes down to religion, and it doesn't matter what religion you believe in. You know that there's a creator, and your Lord is the one that could only judge you, and God doesn't look at your face, your skin, your color, or anything like that. God looks at your heart, and God judges you by your heart and what you did here on this life. And for me to be blessed with holding two prestigious titles as a sheriff officer, always helping the community and always giving back to anybody. I never ever looked at anybody of their skin color, where their background was from, where they migrated from at all. And for me, being a part of an awesome team with the town council along with the mayor, it's a blessing and it's an honor to be a part of a diverse town and a diverse county that I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't know that I didn't have the my video on. I was driving. I'm going to a groundbreaking event over here in town, and they told me that the mayor couldn't make it. So
it's quite
that's why.
fine. We love to put your name together with
Yeah.
the face, so
Yes.
it's
Yes.
quite perfect.
Yeah. So as I was saying, it's an awesome thing. I mean, like I said, me being an immigrant, it hits straight home. And we have a diverse, not only diverse community, in our borough hall, we have a diverse a set of employees that are from the Bengali. Of course, you know, we made history by making the first youngest business administrator in the state of New Jersey, Intishan Chowdhury. His assistant, she's also a Bengali beauty, Nadeem. We have, of course, we have people from Spanish descent. We have Arabic descent. We have English from England. We have so many diverse employees, and we flow together. I feel like I apologize. I don't know what other politicians said it, but I feel like the county of Passaic is like a small America. You know, we're like a melting pot. I love how all the leaders come together to make it to continue the diversity and the equal rights for everyone. And I love that we don't have any lines. We don't have no borders. We don't have no walls. We don't have anything that restricts us. And we do everything out of the goodness of our heart.
Thank you so much, Councilman. And you know what, you're absolutely right. You said something that really stood in my mind, which is nobody has the power to judge another human being. And to the extent that we can respect each other and value each other, that's definitely a basic step and the most important step to acceptance and integration. I thank you. I know that this was a last minute notice. So I appreciate that you have another commitment to go to. So thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it. And we do have two other panelists, so we are going to move on. Next, we have the director for the Center for Hispanic Policy Research and Development of the state of New Jersey, Sara Peña. Ms. Peña is a dedicated bilingual professional with extensive experience in developing and promoting services while addressing the needs of the community with a superior record of successful community service and engagement. Prior to her current position, she worked in the Public Affairs Department at the University Hospital in Newark, where she managed the hospital overall community outreach program, ranging from partnerships with local government agencies, educational institutions, faith-based law enforcement, and municipal alliances. She received her bachelor's degree in management from Kean University in 1996. And in May of 2014, Ms. Peña received her master's degree in public administration from Rutgers University in Newark and was inducted into the National Honor Society for Public Affairs and Administration, Pi Alpha Alpha. Ms. Peña is the past president of LUPE, which is Latinas United for Political Empowerment, and an organization dedicated to the empowerment of all Latinas in New Jersey. She is a fearless leader, and really, she is a role model to all of us. I have had the pleasure of knowing Sara for many, many years, and I have watched carefully her trajectory. She is an inspiration to many, and particularly to the Latina women of the state of New Jersey. She has been instrumental in moving forward some of the elected officials, women elected officials. And so Sara, thank you so much. In addition to that, for those of you that don't know, the Center for the Hispanic Research and Development, they give grants to nonprofit organizations such as ours. We are lucky enough to have received grants from the state through the division that she is a leader of. And really, without your support and your financial assistance, a lot of our programs would not be able to continue. So thank you, Sara. We really, really appreciate your commitment. I turn it over to you at this point.
Thank you, Ileana. Thank you so much for having me here today. Your words just, just brought back a lot of memories of the great work that still needs to be done, and women like yourself who are true inspiration and a leader in New Jersey. We must continue to work together to ensure the future generations, come right up there with us, or do it even better than we ever did. Right. And so I think a lot of my colleagues today, have mentioned so many of the great things and the great work that are happening in the municipalities or counties and at the state level. And it's wonderful to hear our Lieutenant Governor and talk about the great work that she and the governor are doing at the state level, and that which I am blessed to be a part of. And so the Center for Hispanic Policy Research and Development was established in 1975 by the governor at that time. And it was specifically to address those needs of the Hispanic community and recognizing that it was imperative to pay attention to this segment of the population, which had been historically neglected. The office is mandated, as you mentioned, to provide funding for Hispanic initiatives in New Jersey. Our nonprofits provide programs and services that range from mental health to immigration, integration, entrepreneurship, workforce development for youth and adults, senior citizen services, children at risk, and domestic violence programs. But most recently, what we're so proud of is we just developed the first ever research component for the center, which is a statewide needs assessment. Now, we've all been talking about the needs, we've all been talking about, and we know this because a lot of us have been doing a lot of grassroots work and we see it every day, but there is really, nothing more valuable than data. And now the center will be publicly publishing our report, which has been concluded next month. And so that this document is made available to everyone throughout the state in order to push for more funding, in order to advocate on policies that are important. This research took us a whole year, and due to COVID was pushed back a little bit. We were still able to interview key community leaders, clients of nonprofits who receive services, as well as state legislators. So we really got a well-rounded picture of what the need is now today. This will help the center and help me do a better job and provide grant opportunities to different aspects that perhaps we never thought of before. So I am very excited about what's coming from this report and look forward to partnering with many of you that are on this call in Passaic County, as well as throughout the state, to see how we can create better policies to improve the quality of life of our immigrant communities. And so in addition to our grant opportunities and the Hispanic initiatives that I support or the center supports, we have offered a Latino internship program for our students in higher education, which is now celebrating its 33rd year. And so we are extremely proud of the great program. And I really want to emphasize this program has grown throughout the years, and the students are truly coached on skills such as written communication, negotiation, public speaking, organization and time management, and professional etiquette. And I really want to thank, heartfelt thanks to Mayor Hector Lora and the entire city of Passaic for being a placement site to many of our interns. And so they have opened the doors and allowed our young students to go in and see how it is to run a city, or to work in the finance department or admin, or work directly with a mayor, and really have that mentorship that we know is so important for our Latino students to succeed in the, as leaders in this great state. And so I think, I would be remiss, first of all, if I didn't thank and truly thank you, Ileana Montes, and the director, Gustavo Ramirez, for the outstanding job and leadership that you have all done over there at Ayaco during such difficult times that we are still living in today. And over the years, Ayaco has truly built the gold star of immigration services in Passaic County by offering the latest information and programs that serve one of the most vulnerable and growing populations in the state. We also work with OASIS and NJCDC in Passaic County, which also have great programs that they provide to our community. And as we know, Governor Murphy's commitment is to leading New Jersey through this COVID-19 pandemic, and building a stronger, fairer, and more resilient economy for all. As you mentioned earlier in this conference, we have the great Office of New Americans that was just established. And in fiscal year 2021, the governor was able to double the funding for that office so that they can provide legal representation to more than 1,500 immigrants facing deportation in New Jersey. And so our governor and state legislators have worked tirelessly to ensure equitable access to all, regardless of your immigration status. My colleagues at the Department of Community Affairs and other state agencies will speak more to some of the programs and initiatives that they have, such as the rental assistance that was made available during the pandemic for all New Jerseyans. And we talked a little bit about the New Jersey driver's license for all as of May 1st, which now expands the access to driver's license. And, one of the other things is that's really important is the COVID-19 testing, where there's we should not be hesitant as to going to get tested, regardless of your immigration status or insurance coverage. The COVID vaccine documentation is not required to be vaccinated, meaning vaccination sites will not ask for proof of immigration status. And so there's such really great initiatives that have come from the state and our governor, who truly is committed to improving the lives of all New Jerseyans, especially the immigrant community. So I am proud to stand here, and speak to all of you today about some of those things. And you can learn more by visiting more of the websites. But there are great programs like the College Financial Aid Program for the New Jersey Dreamers, the expanding access to professional and occupational licenses, where the law that he signed prohibits lawful presence in the United States as a qualification to obtain a professional or occupational license. provided that the applicant meets all the other requirements. And so this bill impacts roughly 500,000 undocumented residents in New Jersey who will now be eligible for professional licenses such as in nursing, counseling, and cosmetology. I mean, the Cover All Kids initiative that's coming out of the Department of Human Services to ensure, that New Jersey has made a true effort to improve access to healthcare based on the principle that healthcare is just a fundamental right and that everyone should have access, and expand that coverage to all who are in need. I mean, so there's a lot of great things, initiatives that the governor and our state agencies are working towards, because our commitment is to building a stronger and fairer New Jersey for all residents in New Jersey, especially the immigrant community.
Yes, thank you so much, Sarah. And you know what? One of the things that you mentioned that really had affected our community was that for some period of time, they were not giving the licenses to people that were undocumented. I'm not talking about the driver licenses. I'm talking about the beautician's licenses and all of that. So that is definitely a great news because definitely so many people go to those technical schools to get licenses, and that's basically the way that they're able to sustain their homes and their family economy. But I'm particularly also happy to hear about the research component in the center, because obviously for organizations that have been in service for so many years, having that data and being able to see what organization is doing what is going to allow us to see where we can join forces and where we can fill the gaps in places where perhaps we have never thought. So thank you. And I also acknowledge the fact that your job is a very intense and difficult job, because we often take for granted how difficult it is to give grants. I mean, the demand is so high and the amount of funding is so little in comparison to the demand, that you have to prioritize and you have to make difficult decisions. But in overall, we thank you. You have definitely been a person that has supported us throughout the entire years. So thank you, and thank you for joining us again today. We are going to continue with Carlos Gonzalez. In addition to being a council member at large for the city of Newark, Carlos is also a board member of our organization, and he has been a member for many, many years. So we are fortunate enough to count with his insight, his experience, basically on a very, very frequent level every time that we meet to discuss the daily business activities and the progression of our organization. Carlos is a dedicated leader with an international background in the financial and legal sectors. He was sworn into office in July of 2016 as the council member at large in the city of Newark. He is committed to public service and community development and proud to serve in the diverse community of Newark. He has traveled immensely, so that's so wonderful, Carlos. You have been to France, Holland, Italy, Japan, Malaysia, 11 countries in Central America and South America, and most of the Caribbean. So because of your travel experience and because of so many years that you have been committed to the service in the city of Newark, you really have a great vision as to why immigrants are forced to leave their home countries and the necessities that they face once they settle in the States. So I welcome you, Carlos, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ileana, and thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Laura, Mayor Sayeh, Commissioner Bartlett, and all the members. Sara Peña, saludos. to me, it's an immense pleasure to be able to share with you some of our experiences in the city of Newark. The city of Newark, as mentioned before, they created the ID card for individuals that did not have the ability to get an ID card from the county or the state that would identify them to officers when they interacted with police officers on the street, as well as if they were going to, let's say, to the school to pick up a child, they would have a document that identified them to the school authorities as the parent of the child that they were going to pick up. In addition to that, there was a lot of people coming out of prison that did not have any kind of IDs, and the city of Newark created that ID, being the first one in the state to create that. The mayor just launched a program of guaranteed income that was mentioned by Mayor Sayed, giving, I believe the group is 30 members to begin with an additional 400 members, or growing to 400 members, getting $12,000 a year. A portion of the group is going to get $500 a month, and the other one is going to get 2 payments of $6,000 to see what difference does it make to receive that kind of money. And talking about equity, I believe that that's something that in the United States, a lot of people are making less than the minimum wage that we have in the state of New Jersey. In the state of New Jersey, we have a minimum wage of $15 or growing to $15. In some states, that minimum wage is $7.25. No family can live on that kind of salary. Let's say, especially in our state, even with the $15, let's say minimum wage, there is not that many places that people can live with that salary. Let's say $30,000 is not going to provide you with decent housing in a lot of places in the state of New Jersey. We have to do better for our not only immigrants, for the poor people of New Jersey, a portion of which are our immigrant population, because let's say they are usually at the lower end of the rung, in the economic rung in the state. In the city of Newark, we have let's say we were one of the first cities that became a sanctuary city for immigrants. We are, even when Trump was threatening us with let's say taking assistance away, we persisted in being friendly and welcoming to all the immigrants, no matter where they come. I am not, let's say, a typical immigrant because I am from Puerto Rico and you come here as a citizen. However, you feel the same issues when you come from Puerto Rico as you feel coming from any other country. Let's say you feel that, let's say, as the Lieutenant Governor was indicating, you feel alienated from your language, you feel alienated from your religion, you feel alienated from your family. You don't have the support system that you had in your country. So it doesn't matter if you come from Puerto Rico, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, or you come from Argentina or from China, you are going to have the same kind of issues when you come to this country and try to assimilate to the cultures. For some, it's easier because they speak the language. Let's say if you're coming from European countries, normally they speak the language, they speak English, and they tend to mix better in the community. But for some of us, they say that our color identifies us as someones that are not from this country, and make us subject to, in certain instances, mistreatment. Let's say some police officers, some people that law enforcement sometimes have issues with, let's say, Latinos and others that do not seem to be like they are. And we are experiencing that in the United States at this point in time more than I believe ever, with the, let's say, the shootings of people of color by, in most cases, white police officers. So I believe that we have to do better, to be more equitable in terms of treating people, not only with the resources, but with our time. Let's say sometimes we don't dedicate the time that we could to people that come to our offices. My office is one that I don't ask anyone for any kind of information regarding their status or whether they voted for me or not. They say I was brought into office in 2006, not 16 as mentioned before. So it's been almost 16 years that I've been a council member in the city of Newark. And if you come to my office is open to you at all times. Doesn't matter if whether you are a voter from the city of Newark, whether you are a resident of the city of Newark, whether you voted for me or not, doesn't matter. You are a resident of the state of New Jersey, and if you need services, we will try to provide those services to you. The other thing that we try to do in the city of Newark is we have, let's say, we have television access to the meetings. And now we are doing the meetings on Zoom. Some people are criticizing because they don't have the ability to come to the meetings and talk to us personally, because sometimes the meetings can be kind of, difficult. Some language might be even obscene. The way they treat you, sometimes you don't want to be involved in politics. However, the silent majority approve of what you're doing, and that's why I keep doing what I am doing. I keep going back to the voters because I believe that the silent majority approve of what we're doing. We always have some people that are going to be dissatisfied, no matter how much you do for them today. Tomorrow they are going to be satisfied if you don't produce for them. And that happens with the grants. If you provide a grant this year and next year you don't provide the grant, they are going to be dissatisfied with you. If they go to the mayor and they ask for a favor today and the mayor cannot provide that favor today, yesterday the mayor was great, today the mayor is not. So I believe that we have to learn how to deal with our people and know. And this, I believe, give me an advantage having traveled throughout the world, that different cultures act differently. Not all of us have the same way of dealing with the same issue. Let's say we have friends that Dominican friends that let's say like loud music, but that's the way that they live. That's the way that they were brought up. So why criticize them? You might have some other stuff that you do that they don't like. So we have to, as a society, be more acceptable, be more flexible, be more equitable in the treatment of everybody in our societies. I believe that we have the ability to be better together. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. And, being in the Newark City Council for so long, it's definitely a commitment because, as you say, you have to be the voice for the minority for many years. And that's not easy. Having to bring up the issues and having to express the necessities, that's not necessarily an easy task to take on. And this is definitely another call for awareness of how important it is for our immigration community to engage in civic activities, not only in becoming a citizen if they can, and once they become a citizen in voting, but participating in the census. We just had the census last year, and our community is still afraid of participating, thinking that perhaps their information is going to be shared. However, it's also so important for our community to understand that only by participating in the census, we can improve the amount of funding that is going to be allocated for our communities.
Ileana, if I may interject, let's say they say having the numbers that we have in the census allowed New Jersey not to lose one of the representations in Washington that we were supposed to lose. So I believe that, as you mentioned, we have to be counted, we have to participate, because otherwise our children are the ones that are going to suffer, because the schools are not going to get the money, the roads are going to be in worse condition because we're not going to get the money. So I believe that people don't pay the attention that they should to the census and other civic entities or civic activities that they should be participating in.
I completely agree with you, and I'm sure that all of the panelists, Sarah, and all of the mayors can certainly relate to the necessity of the community participating. Yes, there are many undocumented people that they don't have a choice to, vote, and they don't have an opportunity to run for Board of Education or for commissioners or even in politics, but for those folks that are able to do so, it is so important. The Board of Education and the small commissions that are in the local government, they make such important decisions for our children and for our families that we cannot demand, the equal justice. And I shouldn't say that we cannot demand, but at the same time, we do have the responsibility to also be active so that our voices are heard and we really can create more power. We have gone over the hour and a half. This has been an insightful discussion. We can obviously go on and on and on and on because this is a fascinating topic. But you have contributed so much to what needs to be done, to the ideas that need to be developed, to the structures and the support that we need in the long term. So we really, really thank you for your time, for your commitment, for everything that you have done, not only for YACO, but for also for your communities and especially the immigrant community. I'm sure that we're going to be having these conferences on a yearly basis, and we will be tapping to you again. So thank you once again for your time. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Agradecemos mucho su participación.
We appreciate your participation. Please do not forget to fill in the surveys. Remember that your response is absolutely private, confidential, and we will not compile any personal information. Your suggestions and comments will help us improve for future editions of our event. Thank you very much.